why is Adam Schefter saying what he's saying when we're hearing from other places that, well, Trey Lance is ready? When we're hearing from other places that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get traded. I think it's, to me, with Schefter, and we've had Schefter on this show, it's always a major question when we talk about things that he says. Why is he saying it and where is he getting it? Right? Who is he talking to? The answer is a lot of people. So I never dismiss things that he says. Now, this particular element, there are two things at play with will they or won't they trade him. One is they have to have an offer that they like. And two, John, is the guy pulling the trigger on the decision, Kyle Shanahan.
Well, you remember last year when we interviewed Adam Schefter, no big deal. He told us that Sam Darnold could end up going for a first-round pick, and people thought he was nuts, and he ended up going for a second, fourth, and a sixth. Like, he wasn't that far off. Like, he knew. I think he's known the Shanahan family for 25 years. To me, this one's pretty clear. If Kyle Shanahan isn't comfortable with this player, why would he trade Jimmy Garoppolo when he knows that he can compete with Jimmy Garoppolo and have the contingency plan with this guy as he grows? I think it's really that simple. Like, to Kyle Shanahan, does a second-round pick even mean that much? They have a second. They got 3/3. Like, what does he give a shit? We had a second-round pick this year. He was a scout team guard.
He might rather have a player.
Picks mean a lot to me. I was a former scout. I live for picks. Picks do not mean anything to Les Snead, Sean McVay. I don't really think they mean that much to most coaches, and especially a guy like Kyle Shanahan, when it comes to his quarterback. Because ultimately, if he's not comfortable doing this, which I think is insane, because back to what we were just talking about, if you're going to get Tom Brady, I got no problem making Trey Lance sit another year. But at this point in time, when you have $27 million to play with, and you can get a second-round pick, because part of his take on, well, what if you could just play it again and get a third-round compensatory pick? Someone's going to give Jimmy like 3 years, $60 million. Compensatory picks are also based on like how much money you spend, how much money your guys get. The reason the Ravens always get them, they don't ever buy anyone in free agency. They always get reinforcements, and all their guys always get huge contracts. Well, the 49ers, I can guarantee you this guy, if Jimmy did come back and had the same year and someone would give him like 2 years, $40 million or something, the Niners would spend the money they had available, right? They would not just like, let's just roll it back with our up-and-comers. They would use that cash to go buy some players for Trey Lance.
Right.
So they wouldn't get a third-round compensatory pick. And that assumes best case for Jimmy's contract. There's a chance Jimmy would get like $15 million a year.
Well, but and also you've spent the year playing quarterback, playing the sport with him, right? You've spent the year playing with him. And I think we spent a lot of time talking about whether or not Kyle thinks Jimmy, what Kyle thinks of Jimmy, what Kyle thinks of Trey. He told us what he thinks of them head-to-head this year based on how he played them. He was only willing to even start considering Trey Lance once it looked like the season was about to take a turn. He said that. He said it. Yes, it got to the point where I was thinking about going to Trey. But he was not, I think with hindsight, we could say Kyle Shanahan was not going to Trey Lance to save the season. Kyle Shanahan would have gone to Trey Lance once the season was dead.
Yeah.
Barring an injury. So
I think coaches are much, in a weird way, much less emotional about quarterback decisions. Like, we've watched 7 million documentaries, Man in the Arena, on Tom and Bledsoe. Bill was just unemotional about the money guy was making, the money the other guy was not making. All he cared about, like, could you complete passes that I was calling? That's all he cares about, right? And ultimately, Kyle just cares about, can you just run my offense?
Right.
And if he's not comfortable with this guy running his offense, which I'd put a little bit on him, and maybe he would feel much more comfortable with a full offseason with them, he has to make these decisions before that takes place, right? I bet if Jimmy's traded and he gets to spend all of OTAs, he's either going to be more bullish or more nervous once he goes to his summer break, right? He'll be like, I actually feel a lot better about this, right? Or he's like, holy shit, we got fucking training camp is going to be some long nights, me and that kid.
Yeah.
But it's going to be one or the other, assuming if they trade Jimmy. But if Jimmy was back, he'd have no nerves. He'd just feel like he always does in the spring. He's happy. He looks less gray. He looks less stressed out, right? Because part of OTAs, if he trades Jimmy.
That's the spring. It's different than when you're playing the game.
But it's not the spring if Trey's there. Like, wouldn't you say their OTAs would be pretty serious if Jimmy is traded and Trey, which Jimmy is going to get traded. I will be floored if Jimmy is not traded. But I do think there's one guy that's arguing, like, are we sure? And that is the head coach, who, last I checked, has a lot of juice.
Well, see, and I think
Can they turn down a second-round pick guy?
no,
Second-round pick?
no, they cannot.
They'd have 2 second-round picks and 3/3 and a guy making $5 million. How does it
No.
get any better than that?
John Lynch isn't sending his family on vacation while he stays back at Levi Stadium to pass up on a second-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo.
2
No
seconds and 3/3 with a young quarterback and all this money to spend, an extra $27 million?
No chance. This is why this is part of the reason you get paid, Kyle. And again, I think part of the reason you feel comfortable with it is what he did with RG3. Now, I see this a lot, and I think this is important to address because I see it a lot. On the stream, 6 Letters says, this is the same guy that said Mac Jones was a lock at number 3. That's what Schefter said. Remember, a lot of people in the media got crushed for predicting that the 49ers were going to draft Mac Jones, for saying they were going to draft Mac Jones, for saying they don't see how they draft anybody other than Mac Jones. And I believe, it's my belief, and I've said this since the day after the first round was done, that the pile on of all those people is a little misguided. I think it's easy to go, look at all these people. They were wrong. They were just following the rumors about Mac. Yes, that could be it. Or it could be that there was a real battle going on at some point inside the 49ers organization about Mac Jones and Trey Lance. And I tend to believe that all of these people who are very well connected, I'm not saying no one makes mistakes. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying believe things that you don't want to believe. I'm just saying I think there was truth to Mac Jones at 3. I think that's why that story was out. Obviously, it's when you make a prediction, it's black or white. Either you're right or you're wrong. Either the guy got drafted or he didn't. But I think Kyle loved Mac Jones. I think people know that Kyle liked Mac Jones. I don't think he considered Justin Fields at all. And I think that's where a lot of that came from. Now, ultimately, everyone that said he was taking Mac Jones at 3 was wrong because he didn't do it.
And then the guy ended up going 15. Right?
The guy ended up going, yeah, but there's a difference between he didn't do it and everyone made up these rumors and there was no truth to it. I think there was something to it. I believe very strongly there was something to it. And, again, there was an incorrect prediction, but I don't think all those predictions came from people just half-cocked, just saying shit because everyone else was saying it.
And do you think it was random that his buddy, when Traeger had him on the podcast, hit McVay, kind of defended the Mac Jones hype? Remember that?
I do remember that.
It was kind of like, God, Sean McVay's going in. But Kyle had to be careful because he then had his quarterback by that time. But, it was almost like Sean was speaking for Kyle. Like, this guy can play. Everyone hating on this guy. It's like, Sean, you watched him? You guys haven't had a first-round pick in forever. But maybe he did. I'm looking at something right now, and I do think this is important. Last year, Jimmy's cap hit was a little over $26 million. Trey, when you get a first-round picks, their entire 4-year contract is guaranteed. And most of them, 60% of them end up getting that 5th-year option picked up. So they get basically, depending on where you're picked, Trey's 4-year contract was $34 million. And his 5th-year option, by then, he'll be getting extended or whatever. But he got signed for a big contract. His cap hit, it kind of gets spread out throughout the 4 years. It gets smaller to bigger. Starts at 6'2" and ends up at almost 11. So last year, him and Jimmy, and I think if you just said any team in the league that doesn't have like Mahomes or Josh Allen, would you take a $32 million cap hit in your quarterback room to win 10 games? 80% of teams would sign up for that immediately, right? $32 million cap hit to win 10 games and go to the playoffs, just be a wild card team. Every team's, beside like the top 5 or 6 teams, signing up for that. Well, this year it starts going up a little bit because Jimmy now is 27 basically, and Trey is 7'7". So now you're at, almost $35 million. And you go, well, in a perfect world, if you have a $27 million quarterback, would you want your backup to have a cap hit of almost $8 million?
No.
Probably not.
No.
Like you looked at Josh Allen this year. What did they do? They went and got Mitch, who made $2 million. What did Veach do once they signed Mahomes? They got Henne, who doesn't make any money. Even Jordan Love for Aaron Rodgers, because he was picked way later, his cap numbers are way smaller. So I think, it still is it's viable would be the wrong word, but it's definitely, you could justify it. Like, it's not the craziest fucking thing ever.
Financially.
You're
saying, yeah.
But their quarterback room is then $35 million for those two guys.
Yeah. I think part of it, too, is that we all understand that Kyle has the equity that he has and that he doesn't need to
earned a lot more this year, didn't he?
Earned a lot more this year, yeah. And that now is the time to take advantage of what you're talking about. And it's not a rebuild, but just kind of take a step back to hopefully take 2 steps forward with your quarterback. And make up for it in other places. Make up for it on defense. Make up for it with, we had this year from Deebo Samuel that was incredible, right? Make up for it in other places with Trey Lance. So that you can eventually have the guy that you spent. Remember that press conference he had before the draft talking about Josh Allen and Mahomes and guys who can run and guys who can throw and Breeze's arm and all that kind of stuff. Breeze's accuracy and whoever's arm strength. Like that kind of super quarterback, this is your shot at it. Because you're not going to draft another one in 2 years with his physical skills.
I think he combined. He's like, yeah, everyone would want Lamar Jackson with Drew Brees' accuracy and Josh Allen's arm strength. It's like, yeah, no shit. I think in a weird way, Kyle is a little afraid to be uncomfortable on offense at that position. And it's why I think we've always pigeonholed him with the basic guys, right? And Matt Ryan is like the highest level basic guy. Kirk Cousins, like those type players. That's why he, let's face it, he had a soft spot for 2 quarterbacks, C.J. Beathard and Nick Mullins. Like they kind of are the poor man's version of those guys, but he likes that player. Look who he brought in to kind of be third string / backup, Nate Sudfeld, who falls under that. Like he has a specific quarterback he likes, and Jimmy is definitely that. I would say Jimmy turns it over more than those guys, but he falls in that category. Trey is outside his comfort zone. RG3 was too. The difference is, and we'll talk about, I'm probably during the combine, about, you know, how lucky the Niners are to have this prospect on their team because they wouldn't sniff him this year. But the one thing, just texting a couple people, like, you know, I asked a couple people about Kyler Murray when some of that drama came out about, like, you know, where did you guys stand on him coming out of the draft? And everyone had, you know, all acknowledged, like, his tape was unreal. Just his size made, like, certain people uncomfortable. It's like, I just don't bet on little guys at that position to last. When you take a guy number 1 overall, you want him to be on your team for 15 years, right? Right. And, you know, the one thing Trey really hung his hat on was the character stuff. So I think Kyle could get behind that. Like, he's like a perfect character guy. Like, high level, smart, good teammate, good guy. Look how smooth he was this year. Like, Kyle really values that. But I think we got to cut it into 2. He values that, but he also values the quarterback stuff. And it's like, this guy's a big project as a quarterback. And I just think that, you know, Kyle wants to, like, hone in his offense, like, make it this perfect fucking Ferrari
that he controls.
And when you got to fix the engine the whole time, you can't, you know, do all the other shit.
Yeah, no, it's true. But the flaw in that is that it's not as if Jimmy is maintenance free, right? It's not like.
And ultimately, I acknowledge, and Kyle deserves credit, is he had to give the thumbs up to pull the trigger on this guy, right? Because ultimately, let's face it, like you said, it came down to Mac Jones and this guy. Justin Fields was not. There were 3 guys, but 2 guys were in their own category. And I think the easy move would have been at Mac Jones, because he would have been able to trade Jimmy immediately. He would have been able to play Mac Jones, and but they would have been capped. They're not in the NFC Championship game with Mac Jones. I don't believe that for a second. But this guy's ceiling's a lot higher. I just wonder, like, you know, Kyle wants you a little ready-made, you know?
Yeah.
It's hard, you know? And maybe this invigorates him as a coach. Like, I think Andy kind of likes doing that shit.
Well, he told us he was uncomfortable this year calling plays for Trey.
Yeah, he's admitted it. So it's not like he's hiding from any of it. He's definitely admitted it, which is fine. Usually you grow, I'd say, when you're uncomfortable. Like, he should grow as a coach with this player. Like, I bet a big reason, let's face it, a big reason why Brian Daboll has been one of the biggest names in football the last couple of years and was going to get a job this year and should have had one probably last year. It's like what he did with Josh Allen. Now, I think Kyle's pushback would be, well, he's just truly the offensive coordinator. He doesn't have to do all the other stuff. I have to lead team meetings. I have to go to meet. Like, I'm the head coach. So it's easier when you're the offensive coordinator. And Kyle, I think, talked about that with McVay on that podcast, was like, you just have a lot more responsibilities. You just have less time. And then he's lost all his minions. So, like, am I comfortable just because Anthony Lynn's like, well, I handled Herbert. It's like, Anthony, didn't you say you didn't really want to start Herbert? Remember that? He's a little old school that way.
Yeah,
too.
he tried to stick with Tyrod until Tyrod got poked. Herbert, he said Herbert wasn't ready. Right? I think he said that.
I think even after the season, he made some comments like, it's like, Anthony, what we just witnessed, you can't say anything negative about Justin Herbert.
Jeep Crackhawk says, which I think is a golf course, says, not the whole story. He said he was uncomfortable calling plays for both Trey and Jimmy. He said it messes up with the rhythm of the play calling. Yeah, that is what Kyle said. Because then the defense changes.
I think he specifically said, though, about Trey's plays, he didn't know what he was going to see. Trey's plays.
But I do think part of it, and I think the conversation we just had about it still stands. I think part of it was the defense, the defense changes, that you lose all the patterns that you learned that the defense showed you when you changed quarterbacks. So
Schefter just produces content for people. Glad he went on.
Well, and look, I think some of it is about leverage. Like Kyle, I think some of it's about because one of the things he said in that clip that was not really part of that clip, but he said in that podcast was like he doesn't think all these guys are. He doesn't think Russell Wilson's going anywhere, right? So all of a sudden, this
Schefter or Kyle?
I think Schefter.
Yeah.
Shanahan did not say that. But that's part of this. Is like you wait and then you see what people think of the rookie quarterbacks. You see if Bruce Arians is all in on Blaine Gabbert. Quote, people may not like the overall record, but Blaine had 8 head coaches and 8 coordinators in his first 8 years. He's never played with a team this good, he said in the MMQB. Pretty crazy. 8 and 8, 16 different head coaches. 16 different head coaches / coordinators in 8 years is insane.
A huge part of life,
including the Niners,
is just having some high-level guy believe in you. And for whatever reason, Bruce Arians really likes Blaine Gabbert. He liked him in Arizona. He brought with him with Tom. Remember, the Niners kind of liked him as a backup. Like, clearly as a guy, people really like him in the building. I don't think anyone believes he's any good. But Bruce also now realizes, like, maybe there's a chance we don't have anything else, right? Well, I think one thing's becoming clear. I do think Russell, I would pump the brakes on anything's possible in that situation. Now, the difference, I guess, with Russell and Aaron is like Russell could ask for a trade and Seattle could just say no.